Action Plan community outreach meeting. And so I'm Joanna Liu, Senior Transportation Engineer with City of Livermore. I'm the project manager of the Vision Zero Action Plan for the Livermore for City of Livermore. So today, together with me is Christina Mai, Gabriel Sandy Diego, and Juan Tonorio from the city. And also with me is TJKM, the consultant TJKM team. Ruta, do you want to introduce your team?
Yes. So my name is Ruta Jariwala, and I am the project manager at the TGKM Transportation Consultants and I'm being supported by Rutvij Patel and Himangi Mutha. Just to, that was a quick introduction, but just to quickly go through the agenda, we do want to talk about what Vision Zero is, what are the benefits of Vision Zero, how can you help us? Then Vision Zero process, collision analysis. We did do some collision analysis for 5 years, and we want to kind of share the initial findings. High injury network. We have identified a high injury network based on our preliminary collision analysis and findings. And then we also want to go through the public outreach effort that we are conducting through through this plan. And there is a project website that we have. We have also sent out multiple emails. We are going to have these community outreach meetings. So just kind of want to go through all of those and see. I know that a lot of people are really busy. So even if they don't attend this meeting, this presentation will be on the website, as well as um, we do have a map input platform that people could go to and let us know what their comments are. So we'll go through that. How can we maneuver through that platform? And then next steps, where do we go from here? What are our next steps in the next couple of months here? And then open it up to discussion so that you can tell us what your feedback or concerns are at specific locations or corridors, or any input. It could be good or bad, either way. Introductions, we've already gone through that. um, so what is Vision Zero? So the whole point of Vision Zero is that we, there is a belief that there should be zero traffic fatalities and severe injuries within our city. It is this particular whole concept originated in Europe, in Sweden, and it has been successfully gaining momentum in US also, not only in US but a lot of other countries. And the whole goal and objective of this particular plan is to make sure that there are zero killed or fatal and severe injury collisions within our city. And no one should really um, have to go through that life altering situation. None of the families have to go through that life changing alteration. So, and for that reason, we need to make sure that all our streets and transportation infrastructure is safe enough for all modes of transportation. So, it's basically to eliminate fatal and severe injury collisions by promoting safe, equitable mobility for all modes of transportation, whether you walk, bike, drive, or use motorcycles to go through from one point to another within our city. Also, this particular approach helps us to prioritize the safety projects that we will be actually identifying through this plan. And regardless of, again, what mode you travel, with what age, ability, or identity it is. And we also kind of keep in mind that it's not only the engineering solution that we will be looking into, but we will also be combining that with education and enforcement, because all those different aspects of are needed to be integrated to get the most benefit out of this plan. So that is basically what Vision Zero is. It also considers a safe system approach, and the principles of the safe system approach are basically deaths and serious injuries are unacceptable. Humans make mistake, and we know about it, and we need to design accordingly so that we can overcome that and not lead to fatal or severe injury collisions. Humans are vulnerable. Responsibility should be shared, so we want to make sure that the responsibility is shared from top to bottom. When I say top to bottom, that means like planners, the policymakers have to be a part of this plan. Designs and policies need to be integrated within this plan, and individual road users, we as road users, also are part of this. So definitely, we need to share the responsibility towards this goal of zero collisions. And then safety is proactive and redundancy is crucial. So those are the principles of safe system approach. And what these principles lead to is more like we want to make sure that we have safer people, safer vehicles, safer speeds, safer roads throughout our community. And even after doing all this, say for example, we it does lead to a collision, then we want to make sure that the post crash care is available to them so that it does not lead to a fatal collision. So that pretty much is a concept for safe system approach. Along with the safe system approach, the Vision Zero plan itself is also considered as um, two-prong approach, where we do have um, proactive approach and a reactive approach. So when I say reactive approach is basically when you collect the data, when you collect when you collect collision data and do collision analysis, that is the reactive approach. It is after the fact that the collisions have occurred and we are studying them, figuring out the trend and applying that to our plan. Proactive approach is what we're doing right now, basically engaging the community, engaging the stakeholders, making sure that we get their feedback and incorporate that in our plan too. So the plan itself also allows us to take that two-prong approach. So we are proactive and reactive. um, then we would think, why do you think, or why do we think that our city needs a Vision Zero plan? So when we look, as I mentioned to you, that we did do a preliminary analysis on the collision data for last 5 years, which is from 2020 to 2024. And as you can see, that there is an increasing trend of injury collisions. That means definitely we need to do something so that these collisions can go down, as like we would like it to go down to zero. Definitely, because if I ask you what is an acceptable collision or number of collisions that you would be comfortable with, people might say, oh, 10, 20. But if any one member of your family is involved in those collisions, then suddenly you will say zero. So that is what we want to do. We want to make sure that within our city, we try to implement engineering, education, enforcement solutions in such a way that the collisions come down to zero. But right now, in our case, we are seeing that the trend is kind of increasing. So we want to bring it down. That's the reason why we think that city of Livermore, or we, need Vision Zero. Um, Also, we have separated out, just you will hear me saying this over and over again, KSI collisions. And what does KSI mean? Is killed and severe injury collisions or fatal and severe injury collisions. We just call it out KSI. If you look at the KSI for last 5 years, again, it is pretty constant, but 2023 was 16. And again, Vision Zero specifically wants to focus on these KSI collisions and make sure that at least we have no killed and severe injury collisions within our city. So we want to bring this KSI number to zero. Um, Also, like looking at the trends, we did see that there is a growing concern of especially vulnerable users being a part of these collisions. Despite of traffic signals, intersections do pose a risk of fatal and severe injuries. And that's the reason why we think that we should emphasize the need of this comprehensive plan that would help us to identify some safety countermeasures that could help us reducing these type of KSI collisions. Livermore also aims to create safer streets through various measures by prioritizing safety countermeasures. And why we are saying prioritizing safety countermeasures is this plan might come up with a lot of different ideas, safety countermeasures, safety projects, policy changes. Now, to do all that, we definitely need funding. And when we get funding, we we won't get enough funding to do all of them together. So it is very, very important that we prioritize some of those improvements that we would be proposing in this plan, and then slowly, slowly go down the list to make sure that we are trying to implement everything that we have identified. But again, you definitely would need a priority list. And again, going back to what I said a few minutes ago, what is Vision Zero? So city is trying to eliminate traffic fatalities and severe injuries, and they do realize that loss of life is not acceptable. So that is the goal we are moving towards. Now, why do we think that we need to also make this a priority? Is when we look at the injury collisions for last 5 years, we see that there were 833 injury collisions, out of which 57 were KSI, which is killed and severe injury collisions or fatal and severe injury collisions. And then if we bifurcate them by severity, then a percent of those total injury collisions contributed to fatal collisions, 6% to severe injury collisions, 38% to visible injury collisions, and 55% to complaint of pain. So these are all different kind of injuries, whether it's fatal, severe injury, visible injury, or complaint of pain. We also looked at the different modes, which is the most vulnerable travelers, we call it. And as you can see, if I look at all injury collisions, 79% involved motor vehicles, 8% pedestrians, and 13% bicyclists. If I look at only KSI collisions, then I have 65% motor vehicles, 21% pedestrians, and 14% bicyclists. And now you would think that how come this percentage is so high when we talk about KSI? When you are in a car, you're still protected by something, right? But as a pedestrian, I don't have any means to protect myself. So when I get an impact with a car or with a say, for example, nowadays we are also seeing collisions between bicycles and pedestrians get hurt, not only get hurt, but it does lead to fatal collisions. Since there's no protection around them, that impact really causes severity of collision. And that's the reason you would see that when you look at the KSI, most of the times your pedestrian and bicycle percentages would be higher. And that is what we need to figure out, that how can we make other modes also safer and reduce those KSI collisions. And that's the reason why we think that this comprehensive safety strategy, which is including Vision Zero, that prioritizes safe streets infrastructure, lowering the speed limits, educating the community, introducing more law enforcement is important. At the same time, Safe Streets for All, which is SS4A, also has similar goals and objectives. And Livermore aims to create that safer street, reduce traffic related fatalities and injuries. And we do acknowledge that no loss of life, like basically, loss of life is not acceptable for us too. Overall, we have seen that 35% of fatal and severe injury collisions contribute to pedestrians and bicyclists. Benefits of Vision Zero. Um, Definitely, it does benefit because we are introducing two-prong approach to it. One is the reactive, which I mentioned before, which is data-driven approach to identify, analyze, and prioritize our roadway safety improvements. But we are also taking a proactive approach by considering input from stakeholders as well as community. It could be feedback, good, bad, it could be concerns, it could be locations that you want to identify that need additional analysis, or we need to spend more of our efforts on that. It could be anything. It could be that you might know of certain countermeasures that have worked for you and certain countermeasures that have not worked for you, but we want to know from you what you think really works for our city. Also, it does consider holistic approach, so not only considering engineering solutions but also enforcement and education. It allows city to implement systemic approach to address the collisions. What does that mean is we do not want to do only spot improvements at particular location or a particular corridor. We want to come up with improvements that can be implemented citywide, and that's why we call that systemic approach to improve those to have those improvements implement citywide. Also, tailored to cities and community specific needs based on the feedback that we get from you. And one of the most important thing is also that it does make city eligible to apply for grants like EDSIP, OBAG, Safe Streets for All these grants, bef- even before we could put an application together, this particular document is a prerequisite. So that means this plan has to be completed and it has to be adopted by the council before we can even go after these grant funding opportunities that are out there. So it is very important that we get that support from all of you to take when we take this to the council, that the council approves this plan, or else we'll be short of funds to implement some of these safety improvements. And I think I've mentioned it quite a lot of times by now that it's not only engineering solutions that would help us to get the maximum benefit out of this plan, but we have to include education, we have to include enforcement, we have to encourage our community to be a part of this plan, and also evaluation. It's not like, oh, we came up with some improvements, we implemented it, and that's the end of the day. I don't think so that it works that way. Once the countermeasures are implemented, we want to go back and evaluate it to make sure that those countermeasures are working for us. If they're not working for us, what is the fine tuning we need to do? Or do we need to apply some other countermeasures that work? So that evaluation part is also equally important to make sure that whatever we are implementing is working for our community. Um, what is the Vision Zero process, and what do we really where do we really go from here? So we did collect data for 5 years from 2020 to 2024. There we did do the collision analysis. Again, we focused a lot on fatal and severe injury collisions because Vision Zero does focus on KSI collisions. We identified the high risk network based on the total number of KSIs that we have seen. Then once that this stage is done, we will be developing some safety countermeasures before we fold it into safety improvement projects. We will integrate that in our plan with the prioritization, like I mentioned before, and then roll it into an action plan. Once the action plan is also included in the plan, we will roll that into a Vision Zero report, finalize it. Everyone gets a chance to review it before we take it to the city council for approval. So that is the whole process. But one of the most important thing that you can see in throughout the process, we want to have stakeholder and community input at every step. So this is our first meeting today. We are right here. We did have stakeholder meeting this afternoon. A lot of stakeholders showed up in that meeting, and we have got some good feedback from them that we are going to incorporate. Right now, we are kind of in the process of taking this community input, where we are looking forward to get some input from you too. We will be incorporating them before we develop safety countermeasures. We'll come back to you later this year. We will again have a stakeholder meeting as well as community input meeting. Again, kind of tell you what are the different countermeasures or safety projects we have penciled in. Take your input, embed that into our priority improvement list, convert that into an action plan, come back to you again, show you what we have done before we take this report to the council for adoption. So at every point, we want to make sure that we come back to you and take input from you before we finalize the plan. A little bit of technical aspect to this plan is collision analysis, and we have done some preliminary collision analysis. This particular slide on the left shows the map with all injury collisions. When I say all injury collisions, that means fatal, severe injury, visible injury, and complaint of pain. All of them are included. You could see fatal in red. All the red dots are fatal collisions. Your severe injury collisions are the darker gray or bluish gray color that you can see. Visible injury is the light orange, and the complaint of pain is the green, the lighter side of the green. So these are all the collisions that we are seeing within our city. We also, since we are focusing more on fatal and severe injury collisions, the map on the right shows you all only fatal and severe injury collisions that we have within our city in the last 5 years. So a total of 57 of them. And these dots are 833, a total 833 injury collisions. We looked at different trends. So as you can see, that we do have um, um, fatal collisions and severe injury collisions. So 11 in 2020, 12 in 2021, 8 in 2022, gone down a little bit. 2023, we had 16, and then 2024, we have 10. So just trend per year. Also, of the 57 KSI collisions, 11 contributed to fatal, which is 19%, and 46 contributed to severe injury collisions, 81%. When you look at injury collisions by mode, that is all injury collisions, then you see 71% involved passenger cars or pickup trucks, 6% were motorcycles, 1% bus, 13% bicycles, 1% trucks, and 8% pedestrians. When we look at this bifurcation for only KSI collisions, killed and severe injury collisions, 40% involved passenger cars and pickup trucks, 23% was motorcycles, 14% bicycles, 2% trucks, and 21% pedestrians. And then we also looked at whether these collisions occurred at an intersection versus roadway segments. So as you can see, 75% of these collisions, which is 43 collisions, occurred at an intersection, with 25% on roadway segments, which relate to like 14 collisions occurred along the roadway segments. We also separated out pedestrian-related collisions and bicycle-related collisions on the map so that we could see where exactly these collisions have occurred. So there were 12 KSI collisions in last 5 years for pedestrians that involved pedestrians. So here are some locations that you can see. Again, red is a fatal, and the darker gray is severe injury. And similarly, we had 8 bicycle KSI collisions. So the red is fatal, and the the darker grays are severe injury collisions, and the map is on your right. We also kind of dived into it a little bit more. We wanted to see what are the posted speed limits for each one of these different categories. So the reason we wanted to see that is because we know that the higher the speed limit, the likelihood of those collisions um, resulting into fatality is pretty high. So if you get hit or anyone gets hit um, by a vehicle that is um, having a speed of 20 miles per hour, or driving at a speed of 20 miles an hour, then there is a 5% likelihood of that particular collision to be a fatality, versus when you get hit by a vehicle traveling at 30 miles an hour, then there is a 40% likelihood of fatality to occur. And then if anyone is hit by a vehicle traveling at 50 miles an hour, then there is a likelihood of 100% that a fatality could occur. So this is just higher the speed, the severity of the collisions are much, much, much higher. So we want to make sure that we keep our speed lower. Not only that, just by changing the speed limit is not going to um, give us a lot of benefit or cut the deal. We want to make sure that our infrastructure is also promoting lower speeds. So that is what we wanted to kind of show you, that we need to really lower the speeds. Um, and then further down, we also wanted to look at what are the violation categories that we are looking within the city that has led to these collisions. And when we look at that, as you can see, DUI, 19%, one of the violation categories, the highest, followed by unsafe speed, again 19%. So DUI and unsafe speed are the two categories that we really, really need to dive into and see what can be done, followed by automobile right of way, 16%, and improper turning, 11%. So we definitely need to look at that. Also, pedestrian right of way is being compromised because that's 7%, but at the same time, pedestrians are also violating the laws. So definitely enforcement, education, engineering solution all coming together is very, very important, looking at the violation categories. And these violation categories have led to specific type of collisions. And the two collision types that are up there is broadside and vehicle to pedestrian collisions. So you see that a lot of these collisions have resulted to broadside, which is 26%, followed by 21% vehicle to pedestrian, followed by 14% hit objects. So definitely we need to also study what can be done to avoid these type of collisions. We also looked at the lighting conditions. 70% of these collisions occurred during daylight, but there were 22% at night, which is dark, but there were street lights present. And then 4% dark, where no street lights were functioning, or they're not present, or they were not functioning. So we would also look at some of those corridors that we think that we might need to look into upgrading the street lights or adding more street lights, or if they're missing, then what can be done. We also looked at the age group at fault, and the most vulnerable age group that we found through the analysis was 20 to 29, 26%, followed by 30 to 39, 20%. And then we had 50 to 59, 14%. So something else that we really need to look into to see what is happening here too. And that kind of brings us that with all the analysis, we have identified high injury corridors, which is a part of the high injury network. We have identified 13 high injury corridors, and the total that it is accounting for is 7 fatal collisions and 30 severe injury collisions. Not that we are not going to look at the entire city when we are going to look at policy changes or safety improvements. We will be looking at the entirety of the city, not just these corridors, but we need to start somewhere. And this would also help us to prioritize some of these countermeasures or safety projects that we come up with. So here are the 13 ones. The top three are Vasco Road from Scenic Avenue to Westgate Drive, First Street from I-580 to P Street, and Airway Boulevard from Sutter to Kitty Hawk Road. So I'm just not reading all 13 of them, but here is the list for you to look at. With that, I would also like to talk about the different outreach effort that we are incorporating in this plan. We have developed a project website, and I will show that to you in a little bit here. Um, we have also sent out multiple emails. We have developed a map input platform. I'm going to give you a demo of like kind of how to use that map input platform to let us know what your concerns are and exactly where your concerns are, because you can zoom into a driveway level through this map input platform and let us know exact points where you think that we should really focus or gear our attention to. And then there are going to be outreach meetings, a number of outreach meetings that we can talk about. We have some dates already. It is already on our project website. So we'll talk about that too. This is how our project website looks like. And let me directly go to the project website so that I can share. Okay. Do you still see my screen? Okay. So it gives you a little bit of information on what Vision Zero is, where did it originate, what are the goals, understanding the impacts of traffic collisions. We do have two videos. You can kind of take a look at it at your own convenience. Just kind of to understand what happens with those people who get involved in these collisions. Why do we think that it is a life altering incident? So whenever you get a chance, if you want to quickly go through these videos, there are 4 tabs on the website. Vision Zero Action Plan. So what is Vision Zero Action Plan? It gives you a little bit of background. Why do we need Vision Zero Action Plan? Key principles of our action plan, and then goals and strategies. So that is the first tab. I'll come to public outreach a little later. We also have collision history tab, which shows you a map with the collisions that we have in our presentation. So you can zoom at it and kind of look at it where these collisions have occurred. It does show fatal and severe injury collisions. And it is an interactive map. um, Resources, different resources. We wanted to make sure that we build on what city has done so far. So we have studied the strategic plan. We have also looked at the local road safety plan that was done before. We have looked into the general plan and the active transportation plan, and we want to build on top of it, as well as there are some external resources for you to look into or read. And then last but not the least, the public outreach tab. All your upcoming meetings are right here. Just the past meetings. We had started this plan sometime in 2023. So we do have a local road safety plan as well as Vision Zero plan together. We did complete the local road safety plan, but carried forward the Vision Zero plan and picked it up this year again. So there were a couple of presentations and meetings that were done that time. So we do have those here. And if you click on the community input and click on this mapschner.com link, it takes you to this platform. Again, gives you a little bit of idea of what version 0 is. You click on this arrow and it gives you a list of 17 questions. It would not take you more than 5 minutes to answer these. Just kind of gives us an idea of what do you think, what are your priorities, and kind of helps us to understand the city a little bit much better. So if you can answer these questions, we would really be thankful. Once you do that, if you click on this arrow, it will take you to a map, which is our city map. And then there are two options. You can either pin a location or draw a line. So let me start with pinning a location. Say, for example, um, let's go to the school intersection, maybe. Say, I want to say, um, I cross at this intersection daily to go to school. I would to see high visibility crosswalk, for example. I'm just throwing in some, or a leading pedestrian interval at this location. Um, is it signalized? Yeah. And then once you say that, you can just hit done. So we will get this comment and we'll try to incorporate this comment into our analysis, or when we come up with safety improvements, we will make sure that we consider this comment. So it's really important for us to know what do you think about certain locations or certain corridors. So that is location. There is no limit. You can put as many comments as you want, 20, 30, 50, 100. There's no limit on that. Also, the example that I showed you was for a location, but say, for example, you would like to talk about a particular corridor, like doorway, right? You can draw a line. Say, for example, I like to bike and would like to see a bike facility. Or um, I see a lot of cars speeding here. Could we look into traffic calming measures? Anything, whatever you feel. Or this, there might be some countermeasure somewhere, and you could also point it to, oh, this is the high visibility type of crosswalk that I would like to see more and more within the city. So whatever you could let us know, that would be highly appreciated, because then we can incorporate that in our plan. So these are the two different ways you can put the comments in. You could, like I was telling you, you can also kind of, let me see if I can zoom to a particular driveway. It could be anything. I'm just trying to kind of find. You can zoom all the way to a driveway level and let us know that, oh, I use the sidewalk and I don't feel comfortable because cars don't yield at this particular driveway. Anything like that. So just throwing out some examples for you. Once that's done, you hit on this arrow. Please let us know your name. If you want to leave email, again, both of them are optional. You don't have to. And this is not like, it's not the end. Say, for example, after a few days or a few hours, you remember something else and you want to come back. and leave us additional comments, you could anytime come back and do that too. So, and then submit. Please don't forget to submit your input so that we can receive those inputs. That is basically some of the slides that I have here. Okay. So that is basically talking about all the different tabs and the slides that I have. We also have some brochures. So if you would like to share these brochures with your friends, families, neighbors, please let us know. We will be more than happy to share these brochures with you. They sorry, Joanna, I forgot. Are they on the website too?
You mean this brochure?
Yeah.
Probably not. We only have the information, community outreach meeting
Okay.
information, but we can definitely put it on.
Okay. So yeah, please let us know. Be more than happy to share these brochures with you. Um, Here is the outreach that I already went through. These are just snapshots from the same platform that we have, but I've gone through each one of them. I've demoed it. So our next outreach meetings, the next steps are the next meetings are on January 28th and February 25th. We will be identifying the collision profiles based on the trends. Also, we will be incorporating the feedback or comments we receive from the community before we, identify and prioritize the engineering or non-engineering strategies and countermeasures. Once these strategies are identified, we will be developing a safety project list and also implementable action list. That action list will also have some policy changes. If we need to recommend that, then those will be recommended too before we kind of fold it into draft report. And with that, I would like to open it up to Q&A.